Hello guys, welcome back to my channel, and today I want to share a tutorial on how to make a quick heat map thermal photo effect in Pixelmator Pro. So first of all, you open the image. Now let's create an empty layer and fill it with white color. I grab a fill tool and paint it white. Drag it below the main layer, and also let's rename our main portrait image to, let's say, face. Good, now let's duplicate this layer 2 times, so I press Command+G 2 times. Let's rename them Face 1, Face 2. Next, press Face 1 layer, go to Effects tab and add Motion Blur Effect. Leave the motion settings as is, so radius is 20 pixels, and add another motion layer and make a radius to 100 pixels. Now select the second layer, Face 2, and make the same. So add a Motion Blur Effect. This time go to 100, and you can add motion blur once again with the 100 pixels. Now let's apply the mask for this layer. So double press the layer and add mask and paint it with the standard option, so black to white from right side to the left. And let's do the same with the first layer. The next step would be to mark all these layers. I hold Shift and choose the bottom layer and press Command+G to group them. Let's rename it to Face. Now we are halfway there, so our next step would be to create a gradient map. To do this, I create an empty effects layer, go to Effects tab, go to Color Adjustments and choose Gradient Map. Now from here you have plenty of options to experiment with the colors. Okay, so with a few adjustments I created this color palette. Now you can press Control points and move them, and they will affect your image. So we can deepen the shadows by giving a black color more of the palette space. Okay, so here we have our first gradient map. Let's duplicate this layer one more time by pressing Command+J. So for this effects layer I will choose my saved gradient map color palettes that I created before. I will leave a download link to those in the description below. You can just download them, import by pressing these 3 dots and press import. Now let's duplicate the layer one more time and repeat one more time to have different color palettes so you could experiment. Okay, so we have 4 different color palettes. 2 things to mention. For once, you can experiment and combine them too by just checking the mark on 2 layers and achieve different effects. Sometimes it works, sometimes it's not. And another thing to mention, that you can play with opacity adjustments. So instead of going for normal, go to hard light or soft light, and sometimes it might work better for the image. So if the normal effect looks like this here, I choose a hard light, and I think it suits better. Now we can combine all these layers by holding Shift and pressing Command+G. Let's group them and call Effects. So let's go back to Face folder, and I will shortly explain why do we need these masks. So basically we applied quite a bit of motion blur effects, and if there would be no mask, we would get totally blurry picture. With the mask, actually 2 of them, we can control it, and depending on the face of our subject, we can paint and achieve split effects. And we can do that with another mask of another layer, so we have more control. We can lower the opacity of both of these layers, so the effect would be a bit more subtle. So let's do 70%, let's make 70% here as well. Okay, and I'm pretty happy with the result. Also, if you feel that you need more or less motion blur, you can always go back to Effects tab and play with the settings of motion blur. Okay, so here we have our picture, but how do we spice it up? So let's create another empty layer on top, go to Color Adjustments and add a grain. Don't hesitate to add more grain, since it feels pretty natural for these kind of effects. And also for this kind of effect, it would be pretty suitable to add even more texture, grain, scratches or dust, so you can just download an overlay and apply it to the image. I will just create a layer and replace it with one of the dust images. Okay, so here I applied it, and let's make the opacity to lighten and reduce the opacity to 50. Let's move this layer below our grain effect. So here we have our image. I think it's more or less finished. and we can just view how it would look like with different gradient maps. Okay, so what can you do more is to go back to original portrait layer and just reduce its opacity. So we have some sort of light leak which suits this image pretty well. And as I mentioned before, you can play with mask settings, or you can even apply tilt shift effect. So let's duplicate this layer, let's delete the mask, go to effects tab, delete motion effect, and add tilt shift. Let's put it on the face, and boom, you have another image which looks pretty well. I think it suits the image even better. And speaking of portraits, in case you want to see how the effect would look like on different image, you have to replace all these images with the portraits. Pixelmator Pro sadly doesn't support smart object, so let's replace these layers with another images and see how it looks like. You can play with the mask to give some more blur on her face. Bringing back the opacity of the main portrait is doing our favor. And let's choose another gradient map. And this looks cool, I think, but I like this one a lot. And if you go back to normal gradient map, you see another different effect. And with the tilt shift effect, we have another striking portrait. So as you can see, we have plenty of effects to choose from and plenty of ways to improve our image and achieve interesting effects. So this is it, guys. Thank you for watching. I wish you to stay curious in the next year, and I hope to see you next time.